Well, I'm Melvin Burnham, and I'm interested in history. Have been working with the Skowhegan History House for a number of years, and really developed the interest of local history by working with a man by the name of Lee Granville. And I like to do research. I'm not a professional researcher. I don't have all of the answers. I just have a good time doing it, and I like sharing the information that I gather. I like to have these presentations kind of homey, if you will. I'm not the brightest one in the room. We're all bright, and we can all add to the conversation. So if you have something to add, raise your hand. If I don't see you, say, "Hey, Burnham," and I'll try to get a hold of you. Because we're on Zoom, I need to stay within Zoom space here so that the folks on Zoom can hear and see what's going on as well. So I hate to have my back to some of you, but I'll try to speak loudly enough so everyone can hear. If you can't, let me know. If you have a trouble seeing, bounce one of these folks out of the front seat and take their seat, and they'll be glad to help you out. Other announcements before I get going. The restrooms are in the back to the left. I want to thank Elizabeth Fernkes, the principal of this building, and the young man that helped us this afternoon set up. They're excellent people to work with. I want to call your attention to a program that Earl Shuttleworth is going to be doing. He is the state historian, and he's going to be speaking on Skowhegan architecture next Tuesday, the 25th, at the Margaret Chase Smith Library. I urge you all to go. He's an excellent speaker. This is the bicentennial year for Skowhegan, and today I bought the coin that's on sale down at the office, the town manager's office. It's $10. If you'd like to look at it later, I think it's beautiful. They did a nice job. If you don't want to spend that much, but you want to help out, you can pick up a pen for $2. I want to call your attention to there are activities having to do with our bicentennial going on in a couple of weeks during the Run of the River programs. There's a parade, I think it's on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, and it's based on the bicentennial theme. And on Sunday in the park, I think it's 12 to 4. There's all kinds of activities going on there pertaining to the bicentennial. I urge you to dig out your lawn chair and go down and have a good time. On August 24th, I'll be doing a tour of the island. It's one that I've done a couple of times, and this time we're trying to get into the building that they're renovating that used to be the spinning mill, to have a look and see what that's like now that it's being renovated. So that will be fun to do. Hopefully we can do that. And that's at 10 o'clock on the 24th. I'd like to call your attention to the young lady down here, second one in, second row, Patricia Harine. Would you stand, Patricia? She's the president of the History House. She's doing an excellent job. So, what are we going to do here this evening? Well, we're going to talk about a building that was built in 1867-68, and it was eventually called Coburn Hall. And Coburn Hall used to be right where this building was. It burned in 1904, and they built a building right on it in 1905 using the same footprint. Now, I have to keep kicking myself in the head to remember this is not Coburn Hall, but it has a lot of similarities. So we're going to talk about why did they build this building, Coburn Hall, so that it had an auditorium that would hold 1,200 people in 1867-68, when the population was about 3,000 people. Why did that happen? We're going to talk about its construction, and we're going to talk about its use. And I have taken on and put into a program here some pictures of people who came here and either lectured or were in plays or whatever, concerts, and you'll see some fascinating photos. During the research, I went through all the papers that I could find at History House, all the documents that I could find, books and so forth. I went online, I did a lot of research, and I made a spreadsheet listing down all the things that I could find that took part in this building. I came up with 384. It's up here at the podium afterwards if you'd like to go through it. Now, we're not going to go through 384. I found that there was a great deal of interest in humor. Lots of humor kinds of programs. Lots of minstrels. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but there will be some pictures of minstrels. It happened. Okay. All kinds of people, political folks coming to town. People with that supported programs like the abolition, temperance, and suffragettes, and so forth. Very interesting list. And sometimes they stayed one day, sometimes they stayed 3. Most all of them came on the train, because in 1856, November 16th, the train came up the valley, stopped right over here. Can you imagine what that must have sounded like on November 16th, 1856? That train coming up through the valley, up beside the river from Waterville? Can you hear the sound? Chug, chug, chug. Can you hear the whistle? Yeah, I can. It must have been an amazing feeling. Because in 1885, they had 5 trains leave this town every day. And 9 hours to Boston. And prior to that, it was days. It was many days travel to Boston. What a wonderful time to live in this community. The trains brought all kinds of stuff to this town. Not potatoes, but produce from the South. Products from the South. And we shipped products in the other direction. And another thing that it brought entertainers looking for a job, looking to perform, looking to share their message. The train opened this whole community up. Listings right here. So we'll talk about its use, and then we'll talk about its demise. Sad story. So let's get started. I've tried to add a little bit of animation to this to keep you awake, okay? And the mysterious line that's going right through the screen, ignore it. It's really not there. I wanted to provide a big enough screen so everybody can see. All right, this is a listing that's similar to the one that you have in your hand. Just want to highlight a few things. 1788, Canaan became a town. That's 1 year before President Washington became president. The town of Bloomfield moved over, left the town and became its own town, and it was Bloomfield. 1823, 200 years ago, the town of Milburn incorporated everything on this side of the river, except for the existing Canaan town. I don't know why they called it Milburn. I don't think there were more than 1 mill in the town, in that area. And because the island was always referred to as Skowhegan or Skowhegan Falls, and that's where the majority of the business was happening, they decided to change Milburn to Skowhegan. A good move. And then in 1861, Bloomfield decided, well, they'd like to regroup or merge back with the town of Skowhegan. Whoop. And then on May 29th, 1867, Coburn Hall opened. So you can see what was happening here at that time. First newspaper printed in Somerset County, 1823, same year as the incorporation. Now, for a little bit, I need to talk to you about center of power. Life comes down to power, money, and love. In my mind, my wife has all the power, she has all the money, and I have all the love.
If I ask her that, is she going to agree?
No, I'm just kidding. She's a wonderful person. Now, when the early settlers came here, 1771-ish, there weren't a whole lot of people to meet with. But as things developed, as people moved in, they had to have a way of doing things together, building roads, building schools, building churches, those sorts of things. But the early meetings happened in farmhouses and barns and over the fence. One guy would say, well, I'd be willing to work on the road from blah, 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 if you give me some chickens or whatever. And roads were started. And the center of power was in a rural area, rural in nature. To the east of us were great big farms out over the hills of Canaan, out over the eastern part of the town of Skowhegan. And those constituted the center of power. More people were there than there were here on the island or in this community. So that's where the power things happen, the decisions happen. Then the center of power seemed to shift a little bit with Milburn and Skowhegan coming into play. Here we have the Dudley Corner School. As communities grew, schoolhouses were constructed and they became the community's gathering place for education, town meetings, elections, religious, cultural, and political functions. This school was built in about 1805. Well, they grew out of this building. The town got bigger. So they needed something bigger. And the center of power was shifting. And this building, it's the back end of this long building. Some way I can have a pointer. Oh, if I look on my screen, I see it. Oh, down here. Thank you. Back end of this building was the townhouse. This was the first townhouse to be built here in Skowhegan other than the Dudley Corner School. They grew out of the school, they needed more room, and they were getting more cultural. More people were coming to town to present their point of view, to lecture, and to present programs. Anybody know where this is?
No, it's not doing to ask the question, where is that located?
I know.
Out in the parking lot?
Exactly. If you're coming out of the town office on the end view by the parking lot, you're staring right at it. That is the townhouse built about 1848, 49, 50, and the front part was added on as a newspaper outfit. Now, The building was used to conduct town business as well as cultural presentations and political gatherings. Here are some things that happened in that building. The Somerset Sacred Music Society had programs there. They had lyceums there. Wendell Phillips lectured there on the lost arts. The Somerset Republican Convention held their meeting there. Governors, Blaine and Morrill, talked there. Civil War General O.O. Howard, big person around this area in Civil War. They had church services. And Morrison's Orchestra and Pauline Robinson performed there. Morrison's Orchestra was used an awful lot. I don't know when they had time to sleep. All kinds of presentations. They were part of programs. The Musical Convention of 1863, directed by Professor Solon Wilder of Boston, happened there. But the most interesting thing to me that happened there happened in 1861. Bloomfield wanted to merge back with Skowhegan. In order for that to happen, both towns had to vote. Bloomfield voted with a high majority of yeses. Skowhegan had 5 majority votes when they voted. They won by 5 votes. Now, if 5 people had decided not to come, and they were the right ones, we'd look a lot different today. Well, we need to have a visual picture of what it was like here. This is 1860. And we're looking down Russell Street. If you go out here to the corner, right out here on Madison Avenue, and you look east on Commercial Street, which was formerly Russell Street, that's what you would have seen in 1860. Isn't that a wonderful picture? Over here is where the Coburn Hall will be built. Do you remember when this building was here? I remember they just tore it down not long ago. And right in front of this building would have been that yellow structure on the corner that they tore down, not long they made a little park. Yes. Okay. Across the street is the new Skowhegan house. The old one used to be over where the bank building is on the corner. That burned down, so they built a new one. This is the new one. Right now it's a parking lot right out there. Over across Madison Avenue would have been the Coburn Hotel. Elm Street is off here. Madison Avenue is off here. There are stores down here, and the parties happened up here.
Now, is that the first original one?
Well, it's the first Coburn one that was there. There were others before that, on that. The question was, is that the first hotel at that corner? The question is, no, it's not. There were several others beforehand. Yes. No, that one wasn't. No. The town grew out of that townhouse that they built. They were becoming more culturally involved. The train was bringing in all kinds of people. And people were leaving the area and going out and exploring, getting excited about culture. Coming back here, they wanted more. So they needed a bigger place. So this group of men, yes, men, got together. They had money, they had means, and they pulled their money together and incorporated into an association. This happened a lot back then. The shoe shop, New Balance building, same thing. People got together, they wanted more industry here in town. They pulled their money, sold stock, built the building, and then filled it. Here we have the same deal. These gentlemen decided they needed to have a bigger hall, a commodious hall, huge building. The first thing they did was go to the town officials and say, hey, look, we'll build this building, but you've got to guarantee several things. One, that you will give us the existing town hall. Two, we will say that you can use offices in the top floor of this new building and the auditorium anytime you want to. No rent, free of charge. But you've got to guarantee that you're not going to tax us. So they did. And it was all done by private funding. The association incorporated in 1866. Philander Coburn, that's Abner Coburn's brother, isn't that a name, Philander? Levi Weston, they were all involved. They put up common stock for $40,000. They didn't get $40,000, they got $23,000 or so, and later they put out for preferred stock. Mr. Levitt of Lewiston was the contractor, and he immediately advertised for 25 masons and tenders in August 1867. Do you think we could find 25 masons in this area at this time?
Two here in Skowhegan.
Two in this town? Yeah. Yeah. 90 feet frontage on Water Street, 95 on Russell Street. The east and west ends were 82 and 106 feet, respectively. Odd-shaped building. The outside walls were made of brick, 16 inches thick, 50 feet tall. That's a lot of brick. The inside division walls between Ward's store were 12 inches thick, and the inside division wall between Blunt's store were 8 inches thick. I calculated with my masterful tool about 800,000 bricks were needed to construct Coburn Hall. 800,000 bricks. Now I've got a dozen in my backyard. How many do you have? I can't imagine that. Well, Asa Dyer had a brickyard up on the hill up here, but he was dead, so he wasn't going to make any of those bricks. Purington had a brickyard over on Main Street on the other side. They hadn't opened yet. So I'm presuming that the brick came from the Brewer area, because Brewer was the king area for brick. They made hundreds of thousands of brick. They had 20 brick manufacturing outfits in Brewer. 20. And they were such good brick that the U.S. government in their contracts when they built buildings stated all brick had to be Brewer brick or equal. I think that's fascinating. Now, the architect was Gridley James Fox Bryant. My heavens, that's a long name. From Boston. He was self-taught. He very popular among the Boston elite. He designed and custom-made houses, government buildings, churches, schoolhouses, foundational buildings on campuses like Bates and Harvard and Tufts, all across the United States. His father was a noted railway pioneer. Now, Gridley Jr. started his education in Gardner, Maine, in the Gardner Lyceum, the first secondary lyceum in the United States, in Gardner, Maine. Mathematics and engineering. He designed nearly 100 structures in the state of Maine, but the last thing is most important to me. I went looking for the plans for that building. I looked high and low. they burned up with the building. Evidently, the plans were lost in the fire, and Mr. Bryant left strict instructions to his wife when he died to burn all of his work and their home upon his death. Does anybody else have that in their will? It's an idea. Now let's take a look at some of the pictures of Coburn Hall. See how massive that thing was? We're on Water Street looking east. Here we have the J.F. Pollard store. Look, I don't see any Model Ts yet. It's a huge building. Here it is, a different view later on. A little bit of snow on the ground. This building right here you would recognize as the jewelry store. Russikoff's, okay? This building you would have recognized if it hadn't burnt. That's Crane's building. Whoop, oh, don't be dying out on me here. And here we have Coburn Hall. If we look further along, we see the buildings on Mill Street, no longer there. Here's a look at it from across from the bank area. Oh, I don't know why this is doing this. Here's that yellow building they tore down. This is a park. That's the back end of the west side of Coburn Hall. Notice the stone walkways to keep out of the mud. Here's another building, another look. Remember, we had this same view a little bit earlier. Here's the new Skowhegan House Hotel. Notice that there's some more buildings down here now. And here's the new building called Coburn Hall. Massive, massive building. And here's that yellow building they tore down and built a park. Here's a view from up by Margaret Chase Smith Library down over the river. 1868, shortly after it was opened. Here's the Coburn Hall. See how massive that building is. These are the buildings on Mill Street. We'll talk about in the tour on the 24th. And you'll see the covered bridge right here. You see the school, the old high school, and a couple of the churches. There's the Federated Church and there's the Methodist Church before they moved it. Oh, and also notice the logs in the river. Log drives. Everybody still awake? Good. Here's another one, 1884. Here we are looking at Coburn Hall, looking east on Water Street. Notice we have a parade that's going through town, a circus. They have just come off the train, and they're headed up to the fairgrounds for the circus. Notice that there's a cable car track here. That's the cable car that went to Norwich Walk. Went to Norwich Walk, then it stopped and they tore up the tracks and moved it so it would go to Lakewood and Madison. Notice we have an arc light here. This is about the time that street lights came to town, and those came on for a little bit and then shut off and they'd come on again. Not very consistent, not very reliable. Look at, here we have the Oxford Hotel, a grand hotel at the time, stores on the bottom. If you go down that alley, you'd be down at the pub having a drink or something.
What is the wire way up at the top?
Here?
Yes, going across.
That's holding that light.
It's going across the street.
Yeah.
Is that
But-
going over to the train station?
No, it's going over to another building, holding it up. Yeah. Notice the wires. See the wires?
Yeah.
I-
We think there's a lot out there now.
I mean, when you look at this, you kind of look by the wires, but the wires are there.
And that's all electrical.
No, those are all telephone.
That's all telephone.
Yeah. Now, back in that time, we had the Molecular Telephone Company that built telephones for Somerset and Franklin counties only. and they have one at the History House. And in order for you to use it, you had to have a wire to every house that you wanted to talk to. So if you had a lot of friends, you had a lot of wires, and that's some of the wires that are going right there. It's much like the can and the string that you used to play with as kids, much the same. In fact, we turned up over there last year a drum telephone. A drum telephone. It's a box, it has a skin over it, and they hooked a cable, copper cable to it, to another house, and when you wanted to talk, you made a rhythm on that drum and you spoke and you could hear. Yeah, the Marbles did that. Oh, one more thing. Somebody's watch is dinging here. Is that you? You're going to explode? Okay.
You ate the first one. We were down, she had a cataract down in Brunswick,
Yeah.
and it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the doctor come in, what's that noise? And my daughter was sitting, and I'm sitting like this here, my daughter's right there. I couldn't hear the thing, but she could hear it.
Yeah. Notice down here at the end of the street, Heselton Hall, Heselton Hotel right here. That's where the municipal building is now. Yeah. I'm wondering what these are. I think they're probably lightning rods, because there's one there, and there was there. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember another one.
What's electricity these days in DML?
Just coming in.
Just coming in.
Yeah, about 1885 it was prominent. Yeah. Blunt's store. I used to work at the store. Well, it wasn't this store, but the same company. This is one of the 4 stores that were under Coburn Hall. I love this picture because it has so much in it, including the 5 characters right here, and this little tiny girl over here, all dressed up. Yeah, yeah. And the wagon, and the places to hook your wagon, your horses, and they got a kneeling post here so you don't break that great big piece of glass. And if you look at the window designs, displays, sorry, I don't know why that's doing that. Just amazing.
I'm amazed that they could make big plate glass windows like that back then.
Yeah. Okay. Here we are again. Train station out back. Now that's located right over here, folks. Look at where my hand is. Right over here. Yeah.
Mel?
Yes.
You keep showing a picture of this white building. Is that the part that was left over, that was moved to where the gristmill parking lot is now, and then was torn down? Is that?
No, that was down.
Okay.
No, that was, the lady's asking about a part of the Heselton Hotel after it partially burned, was moved by oxen and over logs up to across from where the Strand Theater is now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's not it. This is the Skowhegan, the new Skowhegan Hotel. I want to show this because we got this little thing right here. That little thing right there is the courthouse. And the train station in here. Yeah. Someday I'll tell you the story about the courthouse if you don't already know. Moving on. Here we have this wonderful train station, which was right out here in this parking lot. And it was right at the edge of the road because that's the thing that the arm that came down to stop the horse traffic, right? Yeah. And, oh, this is not acting up well. Here we go. The town, when this was built, made sure that they put a high steeple on that and a clock on 4 sides. They wanted high enough to have it so that people all over the community could see it. All right? Because that was their common timepiece. They would mark their time with that. Okay. This was just as standard time was coming to town. Before this, each town put in whatever they wanted for time. So if you travel from Norwich Walk to Skowhegan, there might be a 15 or 20 minute difference than there is. Of course, if you're going by horse and buggy, it really didn't matter. But once the train came in, it had to be standardized. The other reason they put a tall spire here was because they wanted to use it as a chimney. See the soot coming up through here? Smoke would come out of these and right up the chimney. This is Court Street, and right here is Russell Street. Or I'm sorry that's happening, but all right. The elegant hall auditorium. Too much praise cannot be bestowed upon those who have done so much to give the town the best hall on the Kennebec River. 62 by 100, including the stage. I'm sorry, I don't know why this is happening. Galleries on both sides. Comfortable seating for 1,200 people. Thomas Holt was the planner, and Horace Cheney. Cheney did a lot of work in town. The frescoing fascinated me when I read this. When they put the horsehair plaster on, they hired this guy from Portland, Mr. Schumacher, to come in and do the frescoing. And it was done when it was wet, so that the pigments would sink into the plaster. And the finish was black ash and black walnut trim. And there was a pair of elegant chandeliers donated, $250. Now I have 3 pictures of the inside of this building, and that's it. And they're all the same thing. But notice, this is a memoriam for President Garfield. Okay? He's not up there. They're just memorializing him, okay? Notice the seating. Church pew kind of things. Only they moved. They weren't tied down. Notice the part of the outside of the stage area. What's that called, David? Proscenium. Okay? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Here's another view. See the ceiling? And I read that it was blue. Sky powdery blue. Another good look at the chairs. Had a nice organ, had a piano, and a stairway that went up into the gallery. And the gallery was on both sides and in the back. And if we go over on this side, we get a better look of those settees, I call them. Long settees. I'd like to see 1,200 of us sitting on those. I think they were smaller people.
You wouldn't want to be the guy in the middle.
No, no. But it made it versatile. They could change it, use it for different functions. Besides, they didn't have those fancy seating back then. Here's another view. And we're going to talk about the top part, the mansard. There were 2 halls up on top, above the 1,200-seat auditorium. 2 halls. Masonic Hall, which was elegant, one of the best in the state, and another hall that the Good Templars used, and the Odd Fellows. I'm sorry, I don't know why this is happening. And the Grand Army of the Republic. Jeremy, do you have any idea?
Just keep moving the mouse.
Keep moving the mouse? Okay. Can you believe that? 2 big halls, plus upstairs on the back side, we're looking out the windows that they would have looked at, out of, or some of them, was the town office. Remember the town office could have a free rent there? Backstairs, over the Russell Street staircase, was the town office.
On the 3rd floor?
On the 3rd floor. And just off from there, over the stairs, was a little room. And they used that for the starting of the library. Back in those days, families had large collections of volumes of books, and they loaned them out to people who they trusted. Then, as cultural things changed, they pulled all those books together and put them in a lending library, but you had to be a member, pay a fee, that sort of thing. And that was located up on in that little room off the town office. And it was open 2 afternoons a week.
So the elevator must have worked well, huh?
Elevator must have worked really well.
That's what amazes me, that back then you had to climb all those stairs, and think of all the old people that went up and down those stairs, and now you've got to have elevators and chairlifts and...
Now look at this picture. This is looking west. So if you get down by the municipal building, go out in the middle of the street, and you look west. Here's Russell Street, or Commercial Street now. This is Water Street. And this is Railroad Square. It's right where Patricia plants all of those pink tulips that come up in the spring.
So the Commodious Hall, is that whole building?
That is the Commodious Hall, the Coburn Hall.
So right now, Whittemore's real estate is in front, right? Is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Whittemore's would be right here. Isn't that huge? Huge building. Massive, very impressive. Now I know this is going to drive you nuts, but I guess I got to keep it moving in order to keep the screen coming up. Now, here we go. Sanborn maps. Sanborn maps were produced starting in 1884. Insurance companies would hire this group of people to come in and do some mapping indicating where things were and what they were built of and so forth. And I took one of those maps out of 1884 and I focused on the triangle right here. And this is Water Street, Russell Street, Madison Avenue, and here is the Coburn Hall. Just can't get over how weird shape that is.
Well, it looks different there than that.
Yeah. It's red in this picture because it's made out of brick. If it was yellow, it would be wood. This map would show what it was made out of, what was in the building, how many floors, what kind of a roof, and what kind of water protection they would have. Yeah. Here we have the train tracks coming in over to the railroad station.
Go back down to those three buildings right in the triangle right there.
Right here?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. Whittemore's Realty is right there now. It used to be a cigar factory.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. And most of these have burned and been rebuilt.
The empty space threw me off.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, over the years they had to update it. So in 1887, they remodeled with new scenery and electric lights. They took out, they put in arc lights. Arc lights weren't very good. Not very dependable, not a very good light. So that was in February. In December, they changed their mind and they put in incandescent lights. The entire auditorium would be lighted by that system. And the Masonic rooms, evidently the Masonic fraternity had a lot of power and a lot of money during this time because they rebuilt their apartments. They called them apartments upstairs, the halls upstairs. Yeah. Now I want to stop a little bit. We're sitting in what was Merrill Hall. Now it's the high school here. But again, it's shaped like the Coburn Hall. So I'm imagining that if you turn to the right, you would be looking down the rectangular hall that Coburn Hall had for the auditorium. The stage would be way down there. This would be the rectangular area right here. I just think that's kind of fun to think how that must have looked back then.
Oh, that's true. So the stage was on that end?
I think it was on that end.
Really?
I wasn't here to prove it. I have no plans to prove it, but it makes sense to me that it was on that end. Here's an announcement for the opening. The first entertainment was on June 8th, my mother's birthday, 1868. The entertainment was Buckley's troupe, so it was some sort of dance, some sort of musical. Buckley's is another group that played for just about everything. Morrison's and Buckley's. If you read about this, you read about that, they're involved. Lots of musicians back then. Okay, let's talk about some of the people that came and talked, lectured, performed here at the Coburn Hall. Julia Ward Howe. She is a woman suffragist who came up with a battle hymn of the Republic and the proclamation for Mother's Day. Susan B. Anthony, American socialist reformer, woman suffragist. Strong-looking ladies, don't you think? Frederick Douglass came here several times. Look at the bottom. Doors open at 6:30. Commences at 7:30 o'clock. 7:30, 6:30. The subject, our composite nationality. 35 cents to get in, but if you reserved a seat, 50 cents. That was a high price back then. A lot of the shows that I read about were 25 cents, some even 15, but not generally 35. Why do I have Custer's Last Stand on here? Battle of the Little Bighorn. Well, because his wife, after his massacre, came to town to try to convince people that he was a good person. Elizabeth Bacon Custer took to the road and tried to reclaim her husband's legacy. Now, I'm telling you, ladies, it takes quite a head to hold that hat up. Can you imagine wearing that down the street on a good windy day? Or when it's 95 degrees?
Well, black was the most popular color back there.
It was, she looks like a kind lady. I don't mean to tease. I just have to think that must be something really hard to wear. Excuse me. Will Carleton came to town. He was famous because he was an American poet, and he wrote a lot for the Harper's Weekly, and he wrote Over the Hill in the Poorhouse. That was one of his fame to fames. And this fellow here, just a minute, I got a note on him. Denman Thompson, American playwright, actor, world traveler. He performed here on several occasions, and on one time, of course I can't find it right this second, but he filled the seats with 1,000 people. And he just came back and performed and performed. I want to go back for a minute about the bricks. We're way back in the bricks. When I was researching that, I kind of took a side trail. Wanted to know how they made all those bricks and what was the process. And I came across an excerpt from New Hampshire about 1842, where they were building an insane asylum, and they needed 1 million bricks. And the price was, get this, $4.12 a thousand delivered. $4.12 a thousand delivered. However, if you wanted them built into a wall by a mason, that would be $4.25 a thousand. Can you imagine that? 1,000 bricks. That's a lot of bricks.
Model the next.
Yeah. Oh, yes, this character. Benjamin Franklin Butler. Major General, Union Army, politician, lawyer, businessman. He played a leadership role in the impeachment of President Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Johnson.
Might have been Johnson, yeah.
Jackson impeached.
Yeah, I think you're right. Error on my part, Johnson. Whoever typed this up typed it wrong. Now, these characters, I'm sure, came on the train. These were the Hutchinson family singers, most popular American singers in 1840s, sang four-part harmony. Their repertoire included political, social, comics, sentimental, and dramatic works. Can't you see these guys down here at the tavern? Tanking up a little bit before they perform. Here we go. J.W. Gorman's Alabama Troubadours. Life in the Sunny South. Minstrels, 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 over and over and over again. That, the year on that, 1880s. This person was Ella Shepherd, American soprano, pianist, composer, and arranger of Negro spirituals. Good friend and activist, Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass. Doesn't she look like a handsome lady? Okay, here we are in the auditorium. Okay, the stage is up here. And this is the display for the fair before they had agricultural exhibit space. So these are where all the vegetables came and all the canned goods came, all the knitting, all the quilts and so forth came to the hall, and we were on exhibit here. Camilla Urso. Oh, don't quit on me yet. American musician, recognized as one of the finest violinists in the latter half of the 19th century. Right here in Skowhegan, Maine. I have to think that Elise Fellows White had something to do with her coming. Oh, come on. Here's the play that came. Our Boys, a comedy in 3 acts written by James Bryan. Here's the leaflet that went with it. Wang Ching-fu came, Chinese-American activist, journalist, lecturer, and political writer. Fought for the equal rights of Chinese Americans at the time of the Chinese Exclusion Act. Olive Logan, American actress, author, lecturer on women's suffrage and American rights. And of course we know this fellow, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, Lion of Round Top, governor. I want to go back, sorry. 6th president of Bowdoin College. Neil Dow, mayor of Portland, American prohibitionist, termed the father of temperance. Henry Ward Beecher. Some people don't like temperance. Let's see. Sorry, folks, I don't know why. Might be overheating or something. There we go. Albion Weingard Turgey, American soldier, writer, lawyer, politician, diplomat, civil rights activists. And then we have this fellow, Petroleum V. Nashby, otherwise known as David Ross Locke, American journalist, early political commentator for the Civil War. And of course, we had commencements for the high school. 1890, commencement cover, and 1899. Boy, that seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? Notice that on this one it doesn't say, oh yes it does, on the right it says Bloomfield Academy. Yeah. Bloomfield Academy was the first public high school they had to pay to go to. It's up on Baptist Hill on Main Street going towards the hospital. Skowhegan High School was built next to the Federated Church about 1870 on the island. And they closed down the Bloomfield Academy as long as the townspeople agreed to merge it together and give it the title Skowhegan High School and Bloomfield Academy. And I think there was about $5,000 that came with the deal. Now, if you go to our high school up on the new one, well, it's not new anymore, but I think it was 1976 when it opened, or 67, somewhere in there. 71?
We were the first.
Oh, you were, 71. 71, so it was new when we moved to town. Yeah. If you look at the name on the auditorium, it's Skowhegan Area High School and Bloomfield Academy. We had lectures here, Somerset Lecture Group, all the time. Lectures were big deals. Lyceums were big deals. Lyceums were like little college courses they would take. Yeah. And then there was a pageant called Ladies of the White House, local people putting on the pageant. And then we have Ulysses S. Grant's funeral services on the right. Sorry for the viewing. I tried very hard to get it as best I could, but that's it. They all, yeah. Then the entertainment companies would come to town on the train. And one was called Park Entertainment. And they would involve local people. Lots of these would involve local people in the program. And lots of musicians were involved as well. Put them to work. Even the high school did a minstrel. It wouldn't happen nowadays, folks. And it shouldn't. Here we go. Tom Thumb. He was 3 feet 3 inches. He worked under the pioneer, circus pioneer, P.T. Burnham. Look at this. You want some culture? Opera at the Coburn Hall. 1883 through 1900. And there were some pretty hardcore operas in there. Boston Opera Company. Boston Ideal Opera Company. Are you familiar with any of those, David and John?
Not the companies themselves.
Yeah. And this production happened over and over and over and over again. In 1 year, they had it twice. 87, 88, and then again in 89 and 91. They couldn't get enough of Uncle Tom's Cabin. Jack Havelty, he owned a lot of these minstrel companies. And here's an advertisement that was in the History House for one of them. Hi Henry's Premium Minstrels. uproarious skating carnival. Looks like it might be fun. Look at this guy's eyes. He's in here because of his eyes. They look right through you. John Armour Bingham, GOP representative from Ohio. They brought him out here to talk during one of those Republican conventions. Judge Advocate General for the trial of Abraham Lincoln's assassination. Prosecutor for the impeachment of Andrew Johnson. A typist, I don't know. I don't think he has anything to do with the Bingham Purchase or the Bingham territory up north here. Oftentimes they would start meeting at the Coburn Hall, and then they would, these conventions, and they would march out the door, down the stairs, out the door, and up the streets. And they would have these, I call them Japanese lanterns, with the candles and the bags, all along the streets. They'd go up and go across and come down Madison Avenue, cross the covered bridge over onto the island. And over on the island, there was a pine grove. And evidently there was some sort of stage. And they would go over there and they would lecture them there as well. Wendell Phillips, we've talked about him already. And look at this character. Vice President under Ulysses S. Grant. He died in office. I don't like his eyes. And then we had a Christmas welcome at Coburn Hall. Congregationalists, Sabbath, school, and society welcoming in the holidays. Oh, it didn't like that. And then we had a Ye Great Sing. Now that's not a person, that's a thing. With a grand supper. Mothers and their daughters. Oh, I didn't tell you about the roller skating that happened here at Coburn Hall. Shame on me. 1883-ish, they decided to have roller skating in the auditorium. They cleaned all the seats out. They brought in live bands. And they had roller skating. I don't think I could go on those things.
I think the one on the right was missing the toe strap.
Yeah. A couple of guys from Camden, Belfast, and Waterville opened a roller skating rink here at Coburn Hall. They had house skating club. Music was provided by the Skowhegan Brass Band. Admission was 10 cents. Skate for 2 or 3 hours for 10 cents. Probably they got you on concessions, right? Hot dogs and hamburgers. Roller rink nights, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. The Mount Desert Skating Club came and put on demonstrations. And I like the quote down below. Skating rink afforded to the public some place to go during the unprecedented cold winter. All who have tested the joys of the skates pronounce roller skating far more enjoyable than the outdoor sport. Now, this is before the internet, folks, before much of any movies, that sort of thing. They did have movies then, but, you know, not as great as they do now.
What did they heat the building?
Steam heat.
Steam?
Steam heat. They had 2 boilers in the bowels downstairs. And our friend Mr. Works took me down there when I came to look at this facility, which I think is a great facility, don't you think? Isn't this a great thing?
Yes.
He took me down there and he showed me this far wall to the west. And he said that was an original foundation for Coburn Hall. Now, I don't think he was here at the time. He read it probably or found it somewhere. I bought it. I think it's probably true. Uh-oh. Disaster. December 16th, 1904, the largest and most destructive fire in the history of town. Now, we are hardened to catastrophes. We see it on TV all the time. It's not such a big deal. We've just become hard to it. But back in 1904, this must have been devastating, because this building was the cultural center for not only Skowhegan, but the county. Everything happened at Coburn Hall. Okay, we're standing on Water Street looking kind of eastward. Probably the bankeries are behind us here somewhere. And it's gone, folks. It's just gone. Can you imagine the feeling that the people in this town must have had?
You know what started it?
Well, let's talk about that. Joseph Gagne, who lived on North Avenue, 165, anybody live there? Was a Main Central night watchman and car cleaner. Do you remember where the cars were over on the other side? He first discovered seeing the fire breaking out in the upper west corner of Russell Street, which is right here, folks, right above us. We're looking right in that direction. He ran to the alarm by the post office on Water Street, and he pulled the box, number 34. Remember 34. It was 2:18 in the morning. Warren Tuttle, manager of the new Skowhegan house on Russell Street, was awakened by the glass breaking, and he joined Gagne at the alarm box. Remember, the Skowhegan house was right over there where you see the Chamber of Commerce building. That's exactly where it was. So when these panes of glass up in the upper story broke, landed on the ground, woke him up. George N. Page saw the flames from his house on the corner of Court and High Street. That's over by the other side of the courthouse. Another view. What happened? Well, there are two scenarios. You choose the one you want to believe. I need a drink. I need a drink. The high school basketball team used one of the third floor halls upstairs where the Oddfellows were, way up above the auditorium. They assured that the fire in the small heating stove contained no fire, was tightly closed, and in good order when they left at 5 o'clock on Thursday. Now, folks, high school basketball team playing basketball, third floor in an auditorium upstairs, on hall upstairs. Can you imagine it? Above an auditorium down here. Can you imagine what it must have sounded like down here? They had put a stove in there to keep warm because the steam wasn't helping them out. Sounds tricky to me. Charles Tozier was the custodian who lived on Pleasant Street. He reported that he checked the steam boilers at 10:15 Thursday night. The pressures were fine, and he didn't smell any smoke. This same fella was an inventor, and he played a role in inventing the ball cock joint that you would find in your toilet tank. Yeah, toilet tank character right here in town. Now, let's look. Looks like a hydrant there. Look at all the telephones, poles, horses, all this stuff here. All of this, the walls caved outwards. And when they did, the buildings to the west caught fire. Another view, more close-up view. Here's the corner down here by Madison Avenue and Water. Remember seeing these on the telephone poles? Yeah, those are the same ones that were there. Yeah. And when it rang, it would go to a system that it currently exists on display at the fire department, the ticker tape. And that ticker tape would sound the alarm for the horn to blast. Well, it didn't work. It should have rung 3 and then 4. It rang 3. And that's it. One hydrant failed. And the Village Corporation, which is a separate group of people from the town government that kind of regulated what happened on the island. They had a big pumper, fire pumper, down in the bottom of one of the mills on Mill Street. I suspect it was operated by water power. Had to be. It went down and turned it on, but there was only 40 pounds of pressure. Not much good. Let's talk about the fire department at the time. They had 40 to 50 firefighters. They had 80 hydrants. The water came from the standpipe on Neil Hill. Do you remember that? I remember that. They had a steam pumper, handheld extinguishers, a hook and ladder wagon, 2 hose wagons and a hose cart, I don't know the difference, and rubber lined cotton hose, and 5 horses. So they all pulled up to this big fire. They couldn't do anything with it. All they did was watch it burn. No, that isn't true. They did all they could, but it wasn't good enough. They had the streams barely reached the 3rd floor. Flames were fought by firemen with 7 streams total from working hydrants. 1 from the reservoir out by the realty out here, Whittemore's. In the ground was a cistern, which they call a reservoir. That was for the horses at one time. Word was telegraphed to Waterville for help. Imagine, they had to go and find a telegraph and hope somebody was up at that time in the morning to receive it. A special train from Waterville arrived at 4:40. They did that all the time. Anytime there was a big performance or a big person coming to town, oh, let's have a special train from Waterville. They brought a steam engine and the hose company number 2. They had 12 men. By the time they got here, it was too late. They didn't even unload it. The flames were out pretty much by 5 o'clock. Flames reached 500 feet in the air. The current was towards McClellan Street and Pine Street. So it carried embers over there. You know where McClellan Street and Pine Street is. It covered the ground with embers. Fortunately, the roofs were covered with a thin coating of snow, which prevented more fires. Fortunately, the weather was cold, so the heat tended to go up. There was one additional blaze that started in the Merrill block, but that was quickly noticed and extinguished. And over here on this side, the Ordway building, fire crept up under the roof and started, but they caught that in time. Nearly every plate glass window on the south side of Water Street, from the Philbrook building to and including the Second National Bank, cracked because of the heat. And then the Boston Herald had the gumption to write this. Skowhegan lost almost everything but its name in the recent conflagration. A fire would run away from such a name like that. I'd cancel my Boston Herald if they're even publishing there. I don't know if they know. This was an editorial in the paper the next time it was printed. The burning of the most, it's all one sentence. The burning of the most expensive and valuable business block in the county, containing 4 of our largest and best stores and the greater part of their stocks, the one large public hall, the Masonic rooms and equipment, the office of the selectmen with its contents, the destruction of several wooden buildings and their contents, besides the damage to other properties, to the total estimated value of $130,000, with the consequent interruption of business, all one sentence, of business of the sufferers at the busy season of the holiday trade, is a blow to our business interests that our people feel keenly, and that it will take our town some time to recover. I don't think he knew anything about periods back then. But 130,000 equated to now times now would be about $4.5 million.
It would cost more than that for the architect to design it.
Yes, that's true. It would cost more money for the architect. The aftermath. The Wild store, little was rescued. The Blunt store got 500 of their goods out. The drug store got a showcase of leather goods, 2 sets of scales, cashier register, the prescription files, all amounting to about $1,000. And the C.F. Ward store, which was the most easterly one, got a lot of stuff out because it was the least affected by the fire. These are articles in the newspaper, or ads in the newspaper shortly after. This is the Blunt Hardware one. Most fortunately for all concerned, we saved from the recent disastrous fire all of our books and accounts. We now respectfully ask and urge the hundreds of customers to whom we have gladly extended credit in the past years to kindly make effort to settle their accounts at once, as we need money bad. By so doing, you will place us in a way to extend you credit on future occasions. We shall send you statements as fast as we can. Can't blame them. They lost everything. Ordway's had a water sale. That's the one next door that had the fire that started through the roof a little bit. Look at all those things. I want to see if I can zoom in on some of those. Okay, this is fun to read. About 2,000 yards of best prints, 5 cents and 6 cents a yard usually, now 3 cents. About 1,000 yards of colored bunting, 4 cents goods, now only a penny. About 200 yards, 10 cents flannelettes, whatever those are, 7 cents a yard. About 300 yards of 12.5 cent shirt waist suitings, 9 cents a yard usually. Now they were 12.5 cents, and so on. It's just fun to read through that to see how, 2 dozen ladies' wool underwear. They were $1.25, now they're 89 cents. What a deal. Wool.
I hope that was window one, not summer.
Oh, fun.
And Martin walking around to come by that stuff there.
Yeah. Okay, December 22nd, 6 days after the fire. After a concern has been doing business in town for 37 years, no fire can stop it. And we are so ready again to supply you with whatever you may need or want in our line. They've moved their store down Water Street across from where the reporter office was in 6 days. Isn't that something? Heselton's was across the street from them, over where the Cases store is in that area. And they had a tremendous sale. This came out on the fire day, so it was all set. And then Robin's store was right across the street on Water Street here. They had a big sale, again on the 16th. I don't think they opened that day, but they were ready for a huge sale. So I put those on there because the stores that burned, see what they lost. It's amazing. I want to thank you very much for listening to this presentation. And do you have any questions?
No loss of life.
No loss of life.
So quick question, Mel.
Yes?
The slide before that, you said that the one store opened right up and had a big sale. Wasn't that a little suspicious? Perhaps they... Just thinking,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think they look into that now.
I don't think it opened. It was ready to open. The paper, the fire was at 2 o'clock in the morning. The paper came out, probably it was already published on Friday. Yeah.
Mel, what do you think the people, men, who built these halls, how did they earn their fortune? Is it old money? Did they make their money here?
Most of them were lawyers or had some legal deal. The Coburns got their money from wood and land, and they weren't the only ones. There were other folks who did the same. So,
Andrew was the surveyor.
yes,
First came up here and he spotted all the good lots and he just brought a bottle.
that's exactly right. Yeah.
And where did most of them hail from? Did they come from Massachusetts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mel, do you mind repeating the questions to the folks online?
Okay, I'll try to do that. One was how they earned their money, how they become wealthy. And it was through lumbering and land purchasing, law, yeah. And the other question was where they came from. Mostly they came from the Massachusetts area.
And they're still coming.
And they're still coming. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of land there.
Any other questions? Yes.
Did the building have metal girders in it, or did it have the wooden girders?
I didn't, okay, yes, thank you. Did the building, Coburn Hall, have metal girders in it? I didn't read or see anything about metal girders.
This building in 1905 when it was built, this is all steel.
All steel, yeah.
So it was not a building from Central Maine. As Steve Gavoni said, this is a Boston-made building.
Yeah.
It's all steel beams.
Yeah.
And we have evidence that there were at least 4 or 5 separate fires that were fully evolved in the basement over time. But when they rebuilt this, each of the basements had a chamber that was fire rated. So it snuffed out the fire in time, but there's smoke evidence along that wall.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, all the way up to the floor.
Yeah. Any other questions?
It seems very odd to me that this building was constructed out of all these bricks. And it was the one that burned, where all the other buildings that were wood construction didn't.
Oh, well,
Doesn't that seem odd?
well, no, they did. They caught fire too. The ones on the west side caught fire. And there were a lot of buildings, the big hotels. The question was, why did this brick building burn and other buildings made of wood didn't? Well, that's not true. They did burn frequently.
But not
The ones next door
They did.
did, yeah.
Yeah, but you got to take into consideration how these buildings were built back then. There was brick on the outside, but there was wood on the inside.
Yeah, wood on the inside.
Inside, the brick was holding the wood. So if the wood went the inside, brick walls
The brick
collapsed.
walls would collapse,
That's why he was saying that now that steel with brick lines.
yeah.
Because back then, the timbers of the building went into the brick
Well, I
themselves.
just misunderstood. I thought he said that the insides were metal.
No, this whole...
This current building has a lot of metal in it, yeah.
No, if you look, when he said the outside walls were 16 inches thick. Well, 8 inches of that, the timber went into that wall 8 inches. The big timbers that supported these floors here went into those walls. But once those timbers give way, the brick just caved in or caved out.
But in the meantime, you had an oven.
Yeah.
Fire was on the inside and the bricks were holding the heat in.
Jeremy,
Nobody had the pizza dough.
what do we do now?
There's a couple questions from online.
Okay, questions online, folks? Could I have your attention, please?
So one gentleman asked if this was unusual or if other similar sized towns in Maine were building such large town halls at this time.
All right,
And
let's-
also wondered how it would be heated.
Okay, the question about heating came up again, and they used steam. Steam, they had boilers, 2 in the basement. And was it unusual for towns to have these large buildings?
Not really.
Probably this larger building, maybe, for a town this size, certainly. But a lot of towns had opera houses. Norridgewock had an opera house. Athens, I believe, had an opera house. North New Portland, I believe, had it. So towns had opera houses. They were smaller in nature, but they did relatively the same thing. Next question.
There are a couple of comments, one about bringing back the trolleys and trains, and how could we get the front of the Water Street building fixed up?
We'll pass that on to the
There
director.
we go. And a thank you for your information and your research.
Thank you very much. And again, I thank you all for coming.